Well, good evening, my soul butterflies. I trust you're having a great evening. Tonight, you are listening to Soma Fusion Radio with your host, Katie Kamara. And coming to you live from the nation's capital, Washington, D.C. We are broadcasting to you live worldwide this fine evening on Facebook Live, soma-fusion.com, YouTube, the Soma Fusion Mind, Body and Soul LLC YouTube channel, and the official Global Enlightenment Radio Network.com website. If you go on to my website, the soma-fusion.com, you will see a little player up there. You can hear me. Otherwise, if you want to see the live streams, just go over to YouTube or Facebook Live. There's much to discuss on Soma Fusion tonight. I hope you have all your pens and paper handy. And if you don't, just listen because you can catch the archive of this show later. Sponsorship of Soma Fusion Radio, Conscious Apparel Co. You can find them at www.consciousapparelco.com. And tonight we're talking all about the wonderful age of old souls and empaths. A fundamental aspect of wisdom that is the meaning of existence is, in a nutshell, life. There is nothing else. The experience we gather from living day after day, lifetime after lifetime, constitute the essential components necessary to grow spiritually. No secret rituals mentioned meditation, special meditations, or any other esoteric practices are actually required. Life itself is the only lesson plan needed to move forward. And from this continual dance, we eventually learn the following tenet. We are here to learn how to choose and how to choose how to learn. Tonight, I'll bring a unique perspective to the physical plane explorations, centering on the spiritual growth of the soul and the very intricacies of the human condition. Because tonight's teachings are not based upon dogmatic principle or a requirement to adopt rigid belief systems, the merits of the material can be self-validated, and that which doesn't resonate is tossed aside. Belief is not required. The core of tonight's teachings involves learning to develop self-acceptance and tolerance for others. This is fostered through a set of tools that I call the overleafs. Now, the overleafs describe the various attributes of our personality, showing us how we perceive and interact with our world. By learning about these personality traits, we can better understand the inherent behaviors of ourselves and the people around us. It is not the intention to pass judgment, or in the words of the occasional detractor, to place people in boxes. I'm just simply revealing the unconscious tendencies or default settings that help color each personality with a unique stamp or blueprint, call it what you will. So the journey of the soul begins when it is cast from the Tao, and I'm preferring to use this term Tao rather than God because the word God has been masculinized in society. And if you think of your soul as a spark of consciousness released from the Tao into the physical world, once on the physical, you begin to your reincarnation cycle, the coin of the realm in the teachings that I'm about to give you. Before you incarnate, however, you choose a role or a soul type, a set of overleafs, in other words, personality traits, that lend additional layers of specificity and growth-inducing challenges to your life journey. Life would be no fun if it were always easy. That we know. But entering into the corporeal reality of the physical plane also brings another challenge, the law of duality. Physical existence is awash with dualities. Think of the common polarities, I should say, such as up and down, black and white, good and evil. Each of the roles and the overleafs also fluctuates between polarities, the positive and the negative poles, with one side emphasizing love and the other emphasizing fear. While there is no judgment placed on the dual nature of these energies, occupying the positive pole of a role or overleaf enables a greater connection to the true or authentic self. In other words, the influence of the essence of the higher self, whereas the negative poles are governed by false personality, or what we know as the ego. We have soul types. Your role serves as the blueprint for who you are and how you interact with others, and it is your primary way of being. A role is maintained by a soul for your entire reincarnation cycle, which can range from as few as 37 to over 1,000 lifetimes. A particular role is not more praised or sought after than another, as each role offers a unique set of experience of equal value. So what are the seven soul roles? First up, we have the servers and the priests. They are aligned with inspiration and are roles that dedicate themselves to the service and spiritual evolution of the soul and to the physical needs of people on the planet. A server might be the kindly nurse or the doctor that took care of you at the hospital, or a world-beloved humanitarian like Mother Teresa. In the positive poles, servers are capable of caring, they are competent, devoted, friendly, inspiring, loving, nurturing, practical, sweet, trustworthy, and warm. But a priest might be a local minister or an inspiring figure on the world stage, such as a president. The positive poles are in relation to a priest might be compassionate, guiding, enthusiastic, healing, humanitarian again, inspirational, nurturing, on a mission, a visionary, and spiritual. Then we have artisans and sages. They're aligned with the expression and they are devoted to the expression. The artisans through creativity, and the sage is via communication. So an artisan might be a local artist who paints seascapes at the beach, or an actor on the big screen, such as Audrey Hepburn. Artisans in the positive poles are creative, dreamy, fresh, imaginative, inventive, innovative, original, spontaneous, and stylish. Sages in the positive roles, however, are articulate, colourful, dramatic, entertaining, enthralling, expressive, friendly, fun-loving, humorous, informative, inquisitive, knowledgeable, light-hearted, perceptive, great storytellers, and they are very wise. Warriors and kings are also aligned with action, and they are great immobilizers in society. They express their nature by taking action. A warrior might be the policeman that came to rescue you when your car broke down in traffic, or a dynamic and magnetic charmer like Harrison Ford. Warriors in the positive poles are deliberate, energetic, determined, focused, grounded, organized, principled, productive, protective, proud, skillful, and they are survivors. A king, however, might be the CEO of a major corporation, or the actor that played James Bond like Sean Connery. Kings in positive roles are benevolent, charismatic, commanding, composed, comprehensive. They are experts, inspirer of loyalty, magnanimous, masterful, nature leaders, or natural leaders, I should say, perfectionists, stable, strategists, and troubleshooters. The last of the types is scholars. They are neutral and they are simulators of knowledge. They are profoundly curious and document the experiences that interest them. A scholar might be your college professor or history professor or a favorite writer of literary fiction. Scholars in the positive poles are adventurous, curious, easygoing, grounded, knowledgeable, logical, mediating, methodical, neutral, and observant. But I digress. My soul type traits, just so that you can follow what I'm saying, using me as an example. My soul types are actually mixed and in order from the highest to descending: spiritualist, leader, caregiver, and creator. And yes, I have been tested. Just so you know, overall, I am a server with additional traits. So what does it mean to be a spiritualist? So a spiritualist is a deeply held belief in the world beyond this one. I will have a desire to express your spirituality in some way, and it may be drawn to religion or other spiritual practices. Many spiritualists are highly intuitive, which is why I may have had psychic experiences in the past and why I will tend to use my sixth sense when it comes to decision making. I will also have a great deal of compassion and may feel a strong need to create a better world or to help people make the best of their lives. Charities and not-profits or non-profits are places where you, me, myself, and other spiritualists can express your soul's desire to help others. Whatever work I choose or you choose, you must feel you have a higher purpose. And it is not enough for a spiritualist type to simply pick up a check at the end of the week. There has to be a feeling that someone has benefited from your efforts. That's why many doctors and healers are spiritualists. Whether you know it or not, a spiritualist frequently inspires others through behavior. By expressing spiritualist values such as compassion, fairness, honesty, and altruism, I encourage others to live by these values, especially younger spiritualists who wish to emulate me. The second one is a leader. And it would be hard to imagine myself being anything but a leader of any group. In fact, being a leader, taking any kind of subservient role, may feel demeaning. As a leader type, you have a natural air of authority and a charisma that makes you stand out in a crowd. You bring this life of innate wisdom, which is why people look to you for advice. You can always recognize leaders by their inner confidence and occasionally by their coterie of followers or assistants. The stronger the inner confidence, the better the leader. The next one is a caregiver. It's the quintessential characteristic of a caregiver type is the desire to take care of others. For this reason, caregivers are drawn to the long-term care of children or the elderly. Though some caregivers may find their need to nurture satisfied by raising a family, or many others seek out work such as in such venues such as schools, hospitals, animal shelters. The long-term care of those with Alzheimer's, autism, mental illness often becomes the responsibility of caregivers. If you yourself recognize yourself as a caregiver, you may already have noticed the tendencies to put others' needs ahead of your own. The next one's a creator. As the name suggests, creators are drawn to creativity of all sorts. This includes conventional artistic pursuits such as photography, painting, activities including dance, gardening, cooking, and playing music. Or in the case of myself, a writer. Without a creative outlet, creators can become miserable, which is why if you are this type, you'll be drawn to express yourself creatively in anything you do. You have the ability to be original, and you will use your imagination to find new or better ways to convey your ideas. The sensitivity is a hallmark of the creator and can be hard to manage in this harsh modern world. It does, however, give you an advantage when it comes to accessing the intuitive part of yourself. For this reason, many people who make their living as psychics are creator types. The creator trait of idealism allows us to see the good in others and the potential in people and situations. Focusing on the big picture always comes naturally. But what are the other types? These are personality traits of soul types. The other types that weren't even in my category was hunter, the thinker, helper, educator, and performer. But let's go back to the subject. To gather a variety of experiences, we choose a set of personality attributes, the overleafs, for each new lifetime. And since our role remains the same throughout the reincarnation cycle, understanding and accepting the differences of others is key to unlocking greater levels of tolerance and compassion, both for ourselves and those around us. The overleafs show us how we pre-incarnationally decide to experience life, providing a roadmap for what it means to be human and how to operate from the true personality, the state of being where real spiritual growth occurs. The main overleafs are the goal, so the significant issues that motivate us, the mode, our means of expression, the attitude, our life perspective, and center, how we react. And I'll go through all of these in just a moment. So let's start with the goal. So that's the significant issues that motivate us. We all choose one of 7 goals for a lifetime. The goals are reevaluation, growth, discrimination, acceptance, submission, and dominance, and flow. Reevaluation simplifies and rids life of unnecessary distractions to focus on 1 or 2 issues. Growth is a life busy with challenges and hurdles, yet a person with this goal longs to tackle even more. Discrimination creates critics who reject in life what doesn't meet their exacting standards. Acceptance produces highly agreeable and friendly people who accept others, warts and all. Submission is selflessly devoted to a cause or a person, serving with unwavering support and commitment. Dominance is driven to lead with motivation to control and direct what is encountered. And flow is about rest and not fighting against the current. It seeks the path of the least resistance. To better grasp the influence that your goal can have in your life, think of your life as an unfinished poem. Each new stanza leads you to a conclusion or an observation about something. But until you read that poem in its entirety, the meaning remains unclear. Even the finished poem in some instances can seem meaningless if its words appear without direction. Your goal, therefore, is what it all means, the sum of your poem, the reason you wrote the words in the first place, and why it is often normal not to know the precise meaning of a poem as you write it. Knowing your goal helps to remove the unnecessary clutter of words that distract you from the intended purpose of, in this case, your life. Your goal is a theme of your life. The take-home value, if you will, that connects everything that you've ever strived for a common purpose. And finding the common theme is one way to identify your goal and thus determine if you are on track with the essence and not losing your focus with too many tangible themes. Your mode, however, is one which we all choose for a lifetime. And remember what I said about modes. Modes is our means of expression. We all have 7 modes in a lifetime, and the modes are reserve, which is characterized by emotional restraint, discipline, and appreciation for beauty. Passion loses itself in an intensity of emotion or energy. Unbridled enthusiasm is the modus operandi. Caution hits the brakes on boundless enthusiasm and plays it safe, choosing more deliberation before taking action. Power, the voice of authority, expressing all opinions with confidence and unmistakable presence. Perseverance is the energizer bunny that keeps going and going and going. Long-term goals are usually completed. Aggression is highly assertive and ready to take stand. These people are full of life and ready for any challenge. Observation looks at life with detachment. They quickly absorb the details of their environment. The modes govern how we approach life and how we accomplish our goal. If we're in dominance, for example, we are passionately dominant, or are we passionately dominant or cautiously dominant? The modes also express how we live our life, either with perseverance, aggression, reserve, and so on. Essentially, our modes add the necessary spice to life that flavors our experiences and prevents the unnecessary blandness. What about attitudes? Our attitudes is our life perspective. We all choose 7 attitudes for a lifetime. And they can be stoics. Stoics don't make waves. They accept the world as is and never get flustered by the sticker shock of life. Spiritualists are inspired by the possibilities of what could be and are guided to whatever visionary and uplifting and whatever is visionary or uplifting. Skeptics take nothing on faith and insist on investigating any unsupported claims. Idealists embrace life with enthusiasm for positive change in the world. And then we have the cynics. They often expect the worst and find amusements in life's absurdities. Realists, however, judiciously weigh the facts and view life as it is without embellishment. And pragmatists are efficient, practical, and keenly interested in what gets the most results. The attitudes represent the overall outlook, frame of reference, or the lens through which we view life. Are we skeptical or idealistic, cynical or realistic? The attitudes are most malleable overleaf, meaning our outlook can easily change if we desire. But this also means our attitude is also going to be often the first to go when things become negative, potentially starting a negative chain reaction that derails the goal and mode as well. This effectively spoils the party and the rest of your overleafs, so your personalities, and drags everyone down to the level of unruly guest that gets sick, in the punch bowl. But what about our centers? The centers regulate how we react to the world. They could then be thought of as a window that looks out at the world. There are 7 centers in all, and 4 that are used routinely: emotional, intellectual, moving, physical, as well as the other 2 that are rarely used for prolonged centering: higher emotional and higher intellectual, although we always have access to them for conceptual insights and bouts of emotional ecstasy. The higher centers are considered transformational states of awareness, and they are not dominant in our experiences, encountered mostly during meditative states or peak states activated from exposure to music, art, and sex. Since prolonged exposure to the higher centers eventually burns out the body, no one is ever centered for more than brief periods there. The instinctive center can also be used as a primary center, but this is extremely rare since it operates in the background of our lives already. Centers usually represent the most prominent part of a person, especially how the person is perceived by other people. They are a vital component, but they are often misunderstood or overlooked by most people. However, mastering how to react from the center is most appropriate is an important part of spiritual growth. We also have fears, the soul features, and they include self-depreciation, the fear of inadequacy, arrogance, the fear of being judged, self-destruction, the fear of losing control, greed, not having enough, martyrdom, feeling worthless, impatient, fear of missing out, stubbornness, fear of change. The chief fears are chronic phobias that act as a persistent obstacle during a lifetime, and they are generated by the false personality in late adolescence, and they are the only overleaf that can be changed or eliminated, although it requires considerable effort, and it is a rare feat. But the chief fears bear some similarity to the 7 deadly sins in the Bible, or the kleshas in Buddhism. They differ from the negative poles in that they pertain to social pressures and concerns, whereas the negative poles affect the core being of a person. Misinterpretations of painful events during childhood often shape the course of a chief fear, where false personality, in an attempt to protect itself from further pain, fortifies its perceived vulnerability with a wall of protection against what it fears most, such as a fear of missing out, so impatience, or a fear of not having enough, greed. Your chief fear is often accompanied by a second fear. The primary fear distorts the goal. The secondary disrupts the attitude. In this scenario, the primary chief fear is in its misguided attempt to protect the goal, actually impedes its progress by clouding the energy in the atmosphere of anxiety and apprehension. The same occurs with a secondary fear that distorts the positive virtues of attitude. The ideal way of diffusing the chief fears is to come to the realization that they are simply facades erected by false personality that serve no useful purpose other than to create discord and a difficulty in life. It is often suggested that photographing the fears, which is similar to mindfulness exercises in Eastern religion. But what about we talk about soul age? As we continue through our thread of lifetimes, copiously gathering experiences and learning lessons and fulfilling agreements, and an evolutionary process transpires, and then this course of development is called soul age. Soul age is the growth of a person that is attained during their many incarnations or past lives. The number of lives lived is not as important as the spiritual development achieved, although one soul age is not better than another. Soul age symbolizes the school of life, and each step along the way is a vital part of the curriculum. Soul age is a measurement of the 5 stages of the soul, that the 5 stages of the soul must advance through its development during its reincarnation cycle. Think of this as the "you are here" point on a map, showing where the soul began its journey, where it's currently located, and where it still needs to go. There are, in fact, 7 stages, but the 6th and the 7th stage are not part of the reincarnation cycle. Each soul age marks the soul's continued evolution. It gathers new experiences, makes choices, and learns life lessons. The primary way the soul evolves is by learning the ramifications of personal choice. All the lessons are derived from that. Choices fueled by fear, for instance, which often lead to karmic outcomes, are gradually replaced during the reincarnation cycle with more loving and compassionate choices. This demonstrates how the soul has learnt from a hard-fought experience to embrace a greater oneness with all. In this system, however, no soul age is considered better or worse than another. One should not presume that the soul ages are hierarchical, or that being an old soul is more desirable than being a young soul. All conceits that imply spiritual advancement lie squarely in the realm of the ego, false personality. Each person listening to this show tonight is where they need to be right now, in the present moment. If that means climbing the corporate ladder or raising consciousness through daily meditation, those both are valid. Soul age is not about the race to the finish line. Each person progresses at a rate that is perfect for the needs of their soul. Someone that moves slowly through the reincarnation cycle with a number of past lives perhaps reveals that the course curriculum they chose was more stringent and immersive. The soul's intent was to pursue an advanced degree in the cycle, whereas someone with fewer past lives that moved quickly were merely interested in the survey course. The significance of soul ages is perhaps most evident in different countries seen around the world. In some societies, religious laws are strictly enforced through corporal punishment. In others, the acquisition of wealth, power, and global domination is the primary objective. In smaller regions with primitive technology, nomadic tribes still exist at the higher level of hunter-gatherers. All of these examples show the different perspectives of the soul age at work. And I'll explain the 5 soul ages. We have infant souls. They deal with issues of survival. They don't yet have the basis for making sense of what is out there. They only know that it is not me. Infant souls often live on the fringes of society. Their experience of life is simple, earthly, primitive, and mystical. Without loving guidance from older souls who teach them the difference between right and wrong, infant souls may react violently to perceived threats. Their lesson in life is survival. But their positive attributes are innocent, untarnished by culture, purely instinctive, but their negative attributes are fearful, withdrawn, without a conscience, violent. Then we have baby souls. Baby souls have a need for structure and tend to live according to beliefs based on dogma, such as religious fundamentalism. Baby souls are focused as they are bringing people together under the umbrella of civilization. as being just like me, conformity. They can become confused and upset when those other me's act differently than expected. Their experience of life in the rule-based, rigid, dogmatic, family-orientated, and highly structured around adhering to the laws and mores of an institution or a culture. Think of the Middle West and the conscientious drive to be a model citizen. The lesson here as a baby soul is learning the difference between right and wrong. However, their positive attributes are community-orientated, law-abiding, family values. But their negative attributes are rule-based, rigid, bland, judgmental, black and white, religious fundamentalists. Young souls, however, are success-oriented, and they set high standards of personal achievement. Young souls are learning to impact the world and see others as yous they can impact. Their experience of life is competitive, industrious, independent, profit-motivated, win-lose, and in pursuit of anything that leads to prosperity. They fear aging, the natural decline of their bodies, and they go to great lengths to preserve their status and appearance. Young souls could be the official soul age for facelifts, Botox injections, and tummy tucks. Their lesson here as young souls is success and achievement, win or lose. Their positive attributes, though, however, are as prosperous, world builders, technology developers, infrastructure. However, in the negative attributes, they're domineering. Right makes right. Win at all costs. They're superficial and they're greedy. Mature souls, however, are relationship focused, and they tend to gravitate towards emotional connection and sometimes drama. What's a relationship without drama? Mature souls delving into the inner world and exploring relatedness, they can keenly feel other people's stuff and perceive it in the same way that they perceive on their own or of their own. This can make much for intensity and often subjectivity. Their experience of life is dramatic, emotional, soap opera-like, identified, intimate, empathetic, and self-aware. Their lesson as a matured soul is relationships. Their attributes, positively, is compassionate, social causes, desire to serve, good partners. But their negative is overly dramatic, emotionally attached, and prone to martyrdom. Old souls, however, seek the larger perspective of life, and they have less interest in playing the material game. They tend to be more detached and try to see themselves as others within a larger context, fostering a live and let live motto. The experience of life is laid back, easygoing, detached from emotional intensity, spiritually minded, and sometimes a little lazy. Old souls do not come into full awareness of their soul age until at least the age of 35. Their lesson is the big picture and philosophical perspective. Their positive attributes are nature lovers, spiritual, and unassumingly wise. But their negative is aloof and philosophically arrogant and ambitious, and unambitious, I should say. Successfully advancing through each soul age is dependent on the progressing through the 7 levels of the soul age, as well as the completion of the internal monads. The 7 internal monads, which I just mentioned, is the levels in which we progress in life. To finish these levels, these 7 monads must be completed before graduating to the next level, commonly called life stages or milestones. The monads is a chart of developmental stages. And these steps or stages in life are often characterized by birth, early childhood, adolescence, midlife, life review, dying, and death itself. But there are three possible reasons someone is manifesting a lower soul age than a true one. It could be their youth. The person simply hasn't yet had the time to retrace back their steps of their actual soul age. They could be in review. The soul is choosing to review a younger soul age in order to strengthen some of the weak areas, such as an old soul reviewing younger in order to get better at dealing with the modern world, or being stuck. Personality is willing to face issues and stand in the way in manifesting at their soul age. It's not bad to manifest younger, because no soul age is bad. It's good. It's all good. However, if there's a gap between the true and manifested ages, it may feel very, very uncomfortable, especially if we are stuck and the essence of it wants to get the show on the road. It's a common misconception that suggests that soul ages is hierarchical. Thus, being an old soul is prized above any other soul ages. In short, nobody wants to be a young soul, but a young soul can be fully present and self-aware. In fact, being asleep for the entire reincarnational journey at any soul age is also an option. It all comes down to personal choice. And yeah, there are other certain stereotypes for soul ages, but that's all they are, stereotypes. We typically think of serial killers as infant souls, yet Jack the Ripper was a mature soul. Some old souls may be entrepreneurial and ambitious, but young souls may be spiritual. Stereotypes are instructive at times, but they're not reliable. And there's a considerable give and take on how a person will manifest in their life. It's never black and white. And someone who is heavily shackled by false personality is not going to display much of their true self. And quite often, if we find someone unlikable, we immediately assume that they must be a younger soul age. Soul age is used as a weapon to degrade or vilify others. People may say their boss or uncle must be a young soul because he's an arrogant jerk. But soul age doesn't always translate that way. And if that jerk gets channeled later as a mature or an old soul, there's a disbelief. This is one of the fundamental misunderstandings of soul age, and it doesn't always conform to expectation. The degree to which you are spiritually awake denotes the level of consciousness, not your soul age. The message bears repeating since the concepts of soul age is greatly misunderstood. Soul age, of course, may act as a natural reinforcement of consciousness bolstered by the reincarnational experience acquired, but this offers no guarantee that the conscious level of a soul will commensurate with the soul age stage. And to illustrate, the rays of the sun that heat the equator also strike the Arctic Circle, but the sun in the Arctic is low on the horizon and the light is never direct. That is why it is colder in the Arctic. A soul without the direct loving rays of essence could be considered as receiving the light that is low on the horizon. And this may occur at any soul age. In other words, strictly based on hierarchical measurement, an old soul is not necessarily more advanced than a younger soul. That advancement is measured by the level of consciousness in each soul. And as already stated, the level of consciousness is measured of how much an incarnating soul is spiritually awake. Spiritual advancement is not directly linked to soul age. Soul age is merely just an estimate of the course curriculum completed in the reincarnation cycle. Greater states of awareness may be achieved during the progression and applied in ensuing lifetimes, but work is still needed to smooth out the rough edges, just like everything else in life. The decision to evolve spiritually is always a choice. While some people, we're talking about soul age in politics now. While some people believe soul age is easily delineated between party lines. Young souls are Republicans and mature souls are Democrats. Such divisions are never cut and dried. Just looking at current various politicians, they can show that some young souls are liberal and some old souls are conservative. When partisan politics gets involved, you're not seeing soul age much as false personality. The chief culprit here, of course, is identification. People on both sides of the aisle become over-identified with their political stance, and the negative aspect of their ego take charge and run riot. Both young and old souls struggle in the political arena. It too quickly becomes open warfare, and there is an upside for someone on a spiritual quest. Politics offers great fodder to work on detachment and letting go. So what are the mottos of these soul types? Well, the infant would say, let's not do it. While a baby would say, do it right or don't do it at all. A young soul might say, do it my way. Whereas a mature soul, do it any place but here. An old soul, however, you do what you want and I'll do what I want. And with that said, we'll have a quick break and we'll be right back. You are listening to Soma Fusion Radio with your host, Katie Kamara, on the Global Enlightenment Radio Network. We'll be right back.
Why was the basketball court all wet? Because the players kept dribbling on it.
The dad joke. Corny, groan-worthy, but also one of the simplest ways to share a moment with your kids.
What did the buffalo say when he dropped his son off for school? Bye, son.
So take a moment to make your kid laugh, because dad jokes rule. Make your kid laugh today. Go to fatherhood.gov. Brought to you by the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services and the Ad Council.
I dare you. I dare you to change the world. Yeah, you. Getting that college education.
I dare you to be somebody important.
Like be a teacher. Or a reality TV star.
I dare you to stand up here.
To call the shots.
To be a role model.
An inspiration. An innovator.
To be a teacher. Be my teacher.
Think you can change my life?
Make me excited about science like you?
Have a career that really means something?
Then do it.
I dare you. I dare you. I dare you. I'm waiting.
Alexa, call Ashley.
Yeah, it's about time you called that girl.
No. He just talked to that girl 2 hours ago. You gotta let love marinate. Put love in that bag to marinate. Love gonna be in that bag like, I can't wait to talk to him tomorrow. What? And then after it marinates, you're gonna pull it out.
JB, who's Alexa? Say it, JB.
You Alexa. That's right, I'm Alexa.
Thanks, guys, but I'll take it from here.
180 over 111, and I had a stroke.
145 over 92, and then I had a heart attack.
150 over 90, and I had a stroke.
This is what high blood pressure sounds like. You might not feel its symptoms, but the results from a heart attack or stroke are far from silent. Get back on your treatment plan or talk with your doctor to create a plan that works for you. Go to loweryourhbp.org.
Everything's changed.
Brought to you by the American...
Well, welcome back. You are listening to Soma Fusion Radio with your host, Katie Kamara, on the Global Enlightenment Radio Network. We are now going to talk about old souls. I have a definitive guide, which I actually started writing just recently, about what an old soul is, and I will give you the basics. Being an old soul represents the final stage in the reincarnation journey that consists of 5 soul ages. And we just went through them: infant, baby, young, mature, and old. The old soul often conveys a feeling of looking back at what has been accomplished and embracing the whole of life. I quote, "The old soul perceives itself as a part of something greater that includes itself." With the histrionics of the relationship-oriented mature soul age stage mostly behind them, old souls are now ready to tackle more panoramic perspective of the world that sees the bigger picture and the greater truth. In short, they're going with the flow. But what is an old soul? They've expanded their self-awareness to a level where the drama and materialistic pursuits in the world no longer interest them. The shackles of a 9-to-5 grind is a prison sentence, and they'd rather create the means of employment that reflects personal values and the freedom to explore life with less abeyance to punching a time clock. Old souls do not possess a burning desire to make a major impact in the world, and they're tired of playing the material game. And for that reason alone, they are often deemed the eccentrics by the rest of society. Innately philosophical and prone to teach by example, the old soul provides wise knowledge to younger souls in need of wisdom and guidance. Generally relaxed and unruffled by the drama of life, old souls demonstrate how to be free of the programming of society and how to live more squarely in the present moment. A walking contradiction at times, the old soul embraces and rejects life. As they pull away from the trappings of the world, they may lead a life of abandonment, and that can leave them feeling utterly alone. Such choices are not always intentional, but their strong desire for self-reflection and solitude can remove them from daily doings of the world. The old soul is more interested in being rather than doing. The nature, and I quote, "The nature of the perceptions of the old soul is seeing the greater whole." Most souls, monads, so the experiential units, have to do with being. I remind you that in terms of evolution of the essence, the old soul cycle is the most demanding of all. Since memory of all past lives, its depths and payments, as well as the experience of past lives, is within the conscious grasp of those in this cycle. So what are the characteristics? In general, the soul will seem relaxed, laid back, with amusingly bedraggled appearance that may reveal wrinkles in their clothes and a softly rumpled look. They can dress as professionals when required, but the gamut of their sartorial expressions are rarely pretentious and border on the modestly devilish. What about the old soul eyes? Older souls are unafraid to make strong eye contact, not as a strange power gesture, but from a genuine interest. Wisdom is reflected there. Being in the present moment, their minds don't wander as much when they speak to you, such as fretting over quarrels at work or unpaid bills. In short, they see you. What about an old soul relationship? The old soul can be detached in relationships. and not as prone to emotional upheavals that may occur with younger soul coupled. Physical appearance is of less importance, and the focus is more about what's inside a person, with a healthy respect for any differences and personal differences as well. Relationships are often long-lasting and loving, and there may be a desire for sensuality rather than sex. Older souls typically have a casual outlook about relationships, and they can frustrate mature souls who want the interaction to feel more serious. In fact, the quest to find a soulmate is more of a mature soul convention who are keenly interested in creating right relationships. The old soul typically prefers comfortable relationships. With that said, with relationship lessons under their belt, the old soul has the capacity to love with a more compassionate and loving heart than other soul ages. But how do we know if we're in a relationship with an old soul? Well, at some point through our lives, most of us come in contact with a soul who feels very familiar to us. This feeling of mysterious and inexplicable, as we have no way of logically explaining how we've felt, though we've known this person forever, and yet we seem to anticipate that something momentous or life-changing is about to blossom in our lives without quite knowing why. These souls, no matter what age, race, or gender, often come into our lives spontaneously, creating profound, momentous ripples that carry on for years and sometimes lifetimes, all with a quiet word, wise gesture, and loving presence. If your life has been touched in such a way, you've most likely come in contact with an old soul. Having an old soul in your life is often an immense blessing. And yet, in our fast-paced world, you can easily take these gifts that they offer us for granted. If you are fortunate enough to be in a relationship with an old soul, as we explore, please take the time to express your gratitude as such a precious person in your life for all the guidance, support, and love and unconditional love that they provide you unconditionally. So what are they? They're commonly perceived as homebodies. Old souls often mirror the behavior of old people. They love to relax at home, and they're not too concerned about going out all the time. After all, what could be more rich and vast and stimulating than a world of the mind? If your partner is an old soul, they will much likely express a preference for chilling out at home rather than tagging along to a flamboyant music concerts or adrenaline-pumping theme parks or other youthful activities. They thrive in solitude. Solitude to old souls is refreshing, restorative, as it is where one can feel more in touch with their core of life and existence. Thus, the old soul is more than happy to spend large periods of time by themselves without much worry or drama. Having a little psychological energy to begin with, the old soul is thankful for the shreds of time alone spent reading a book, fiddling over a small project, or tending to the garden. They don't expect big grandiose displays of love from you. They love the little things. If your partner is an old soul, they will treasure the small moments of bliss that they have with you. For example, they might put out a lot of importance to seemingly insignificant things such as watching TV show together every afternoon, or nurturing a plant together, or going for a long walk every weekend. It is these commonplace, unpretentious moments of intimacy that the old soul delights in the most, as they constantly reaffirm the sincerity of the relationship. Life is unpredictable, and deep down the old soul realizes the transience of everything that they hold dear, and so tries to capture in many simple moments of joy as possible. They're often eccentric. Old souls walk to the beat of their own drums, but not in a loud, rebellious, or juvenile way. That is just the nature of who they are. Having vastly different outlooks from those around them, old souls see through the fallacies of social conditioning at a young age and walk through life seeking for the truth or reality of existence that has often been obscured through religious, political, and cultural teachings. Whether they have an odd fashion sense, strange mannerisms, unorthodox perspectives, or seemingly peculiar beliefs, old souls are certainly different from the rest. However, they are far from being a party of one. Old souls still appreciate acceptance and tolerance of who they are, especially in relationships. They must be able to connect with you on a profound level. This is paramount for your relationship to work successfully. Not given to superficial connections of any type. Old souls must be able to connect with you beyond the surface taste of personality similarities. They must be able to share their deepest thoughts, feelings, dreams, perspectives with you, to truly be bonded with you, and they desire the same from you. Without being able to create a profound connection with you, they will usually move on after you've learnt the lessons that they've shared. They will teach you many important lessons in life, whether learning how to be more empathetic, learning how to accept rather than resist, or whether learning simply how to feel gratitude in life. Old souls create an interesting dynamic in relationships. They serve as both teachers and lovers, mentors and companions. While this mixture of roles can sometimes create issues, that is if you don't humbly accept your role as a student, this combination is frequently a recipe for long-lived happiness. Even if you've parted with your old soul partner, you'll most likely feel a continuous sense of admiration and gratefulness towards the much-needed lessons they taught you while they were with you. They also have an antique and elegant taste in sensuality. Now, this doesn't apply to all old souls, but not all souls are necessarily romantic. But when they do make an effort to venture into the realms of sensuality, their approach is often gentle, with a touch of old world charm, far from being lusty, provocative, or lurid. Old souls delight in the sensitivity and symbolic meaning. They might give you a tender kiss on the hand, light candles next to the bed, pick a flower for you, or give you a symbolic piece of jewelry. But whatever sensual style they have, rest assured that it is infused with meaning and significance. They don't like to play games. Many couples begin and end relationships with certain games that they play create drama. Think flirting, baiting, lying, denying, playing cat and mouse, victim, perpetrator, hard to get, etc. However, the old soul is not interested in playing around and is much less interested in enabling this kind of behavior. If you are in a relationship with an old soul, you might have experienced or can expect a very firm and even stern response to game playing. Old souls can give respect and expect respect. They're not interested in wasting time and clearly will express this from the very beginning. They are brutally honest, only when necessary. Old souls value honesty highly, and as they believe it to be an immensely important facet of loving and balanced relationships. For this reason, if your partner is an old soul, they will most likely put a great emphasis on honesty, both from you and from themselves. They often don't hesitate to point things out that embarrass you about yourself, and they prefer to share their thoughts and feelings rather than repressing them, unless they deem it wiser to share with you at another time. They sometimes come across as blasé or indifferent. The old soul doesn't take life seriously as others, often adopting the motto of "don't worry, be happy." The reality is that everything fades and passes away, no matter how wonderful or terrible. Therefore, the old soul does not see much of a point in becoming overly attached to the outcome of situations, whether positive or negative. For this reason, it is common to misinterpret the old soul in your life as an uncaring or apathetic person because they don't share the same extremes in emotion as you. The truth is that they're simply enjoying the ride in their own balanced way. They give freedom, but also expect freedom in return. The beautiful thing about being in a relationship with an old soul is that they can give you a complete reign over your birthright, freedom. Old souls are rarely controlling, demanding, clingy or possessive, and they prefer instead to give you the undivided freedom to do your own thing without conditions. All they expect is honesty. They will support your dreams and desires and will stand by you in your plans and pursuits, but they also expect you to do the same for them. Their love is often unconditional, but they won't be used. Old souls can put up with a lot in life, often because they've developed the ability to accept rather than constantly resist everything that comes their way. While they might love you no matter what you do because they see the beauty inherent within you, they are not interested in being used. Old souls understand that healthy relationships involve give and take, but when a relationship is off-centered due to selfishness and self-sabotaging behaviors, i.e., cheating, lying, self-harm, substance abuse, stealing, and this behavior does not change, the old soul rarely plays the role of self-sacrificing martyr and often moves on to a more fulfilling connection. They are also less prone to cheating. It's not that old souls are necessarily saints, but rather they lack the fundamental interest in sex or secretive rendezvous to engage in cheating within relationships, preferring to live as drama and conflict-free as possible. The old soul will more likely share with his or her partner any feelings or thoughts that might put the connection in jeopardy. The old soul is rarely controlled or driven by libido. And lastly, they inspire you to be a better person. When all has been said and done, old souls give more than they take. If your partner is an old soul, they will leave you feeling as though you are a better, smarter, wiser, more improved, and whole version of yourself than what you were before you met them. So how do old souls act in work and leisure? The older soul is also a creature of leisure. They may even seem lazy on the surface, although they can work very hard if the task is meaningful. And unlike other soul ages, they have fun working. Old souls are also prone to dabble in a multitude of hobbies, perfecting a skill or a talent and then tossing it aside in favor of something else. They are often not interested in finishing their study. They just wanted to resurrect a latent talent from past life to see if they could do it again. But what does an old soul value? Being philosophically inclined, the old soul values a good conversation and deep thoughts. Their views may seem out of step with society, and they don't mind. They take a personal responsibility for their place in the world and foster an attitude of you go your way and I'll go mine. The old soul has learnt not to resist life, accepting things that cannot be changed and skillfully adapting to the many forks in the road. Although not always religious, the old soul may pursue spiritual development with a special interest in teaching others on the path. Old souls like to teach by example, and they are frequently drawn to nature, the arts, and often multi-talented. They are not interested in changing the world like a mature soul. But what is an old soul level? Level 1, act against conventional morals and inner conviction. Level 2, honestly admire yourself, dispense with admiration of others. Number 3, combine precise introspection with active results. Level 4, unite your well-being with the welfare of a community. Level 5, follow a path of unwavering without knowing where it leads. Level 6, impress by being, not by doing. And the final level is receive without giving, give without receiving. But what are the signs of an old soul? I'm going to give you some key points. Old souls are philosophically oriented and strive to see the bigger picture. They generally are compassionate and kind, but should guard against a streak of arrogance. They believe that there's more to life than money and relentless pursuit of material possessions. They're considered eccentrics compared to the rest of society. With so many lifetimes under their belt, they possess many gifts and talents. And they can seem relaxed and unassuming even in a crisis. And the older soul is mostly detached from the drama of life and prefers to do their own thing. But what about old soul love? To begin, let me state up front that all souls have the capacity to love. Love is not a precious commodity that is only available to the highest bidder or someone with the secret password. Love is as free as the air that you breathe, and is not on a higher pedestal that's beyond the reach of souls with less life experience. To be cautious of idealistic notions say otherwise. That said, without the normal fear-based mechanisms that negatively distort its expression or enslave that expression with limiting conditions, the old soul is perhaps better equipped to embrace love. Unconditional love is, in fact, a primary lesson for the old soul, where love is seen from a 30,000-foot view, so to speak. The old soul thus experienced love through a wide-angled lens and is more concerned with love that encompasses the bigger picture rather than love's exclusively focused on the fine details, such as mature soul relationships that intentionally bridge the inner worlds of two people. For the older soul, love is less conditional because it is less dependent on a single one-to-one action. That's not to say that their relationships are not monogamous. They are for the most part and can be long-lasting. Again, it's all about choice. Old soul love is more open and freely shared, although not necessarily in a sexual way, and endows the soul with the capacity to love people deeply without emotional conditions. This is a natural state of love and an unfettered expression possible in many souls but rarely explored. The ability for old souls to love so freely, however, often draws suspicion from others regarding the purity of their motives. This can cause the older soul to withdraw from their natural state, resulting in confusion and depression. And depression and the old soul are in fact frequent bedfellows. The old soul carry deep memories of the past connections and associations on both the physical and the astral. This may not be clearly understood on a conscious level, but it is felt and resonated as an inexplicable longing and loss for what once was. This creates melancholy in some old souls who find their hearts aching for these past connections. And for that reason, old souls may seem haunted by the memories of love and cannot be associated with anything real in a current lifetime. To the older soul, it feels like a longing that gnaws at the stomach and aches for the things that long past and frustratingly unreachable. Depression is best remedied by focusing on the present moment with a concerted focus on what is. After all, true love shared between another is never lost, only stored away, like seasonal clothing. As biblical scriptures once noted, for everything there is a season. The old soul has known many seasons. But what if the old soul is finding love? For the older soul, finding love has evolved beyond the glamorized imagery of often depicted in romance novels and on magazine covers. Old souls are not concerned with the thrill of romance and more satisfied with comfortable, less dramatic relationships that nurture and lend the support to the daily demands of life. That doesn't mean the relationships are strictly utilitarian, but without passion. Without passion. Old souls can be ardently passionate about love, but their expression is less about the fireworks and more about rekindling prior connections that have withstood the test of time. The old soul often seeks what is most comfortable and true. This may present certain obstacles when so many souls once close to the elder soul have cycled off and concluded their incarnations on the planet. The old soul's tribe its pool of viable candidates, so to speak, has depleted. Another potential obstacle is the old soul's sometimes unsociable need for solitude. Relationships of a romantic nature are not always what the older soul seeks. This is not true for every old soul, of course. But the old soul that finds himself sitting on the fence when it comes to relationships should keep this in mind. Haruki Murakami of the book Norwegian Wood quotes, "I was always hungry for love, just once. I always wanted to know what it was like to get my fill of it. To be fed so much love that I couldn't take any more. Just once." But on the other hand, one of the greatest problems that old soul ever face in this life is finding love. And what sets the old souls apart from others is their deeper level of maturity or wisdom. And with this wisdom comes the need to live and love authentically. But as you've probably already discovered, the problem with most relationships is that they've already established, they're established to avoid loneliness, create comfort or security, or gain some sense of self-worth. In other words, many relationships are based on playing the ego-centered games, just like the ones we see on TV and in films. People thrive on drama. People believe what they need another person to fill an empty hole inside of them. But something within you thirsts for a deeper level of love beyond the melodrama and lust. Truth is, you yearn deep down for that which you've never or rarely experienced before. A relationship that is intense but healthy, devoted but free, supportive but not smothering. You crave honesty, authenticity, passion, empathy, true love, sincerity, and depth. You want to be seen, heard, understood, valued, and loved for who you are. And you want to express the same towards someone else. But what are the main reasons why finding love as an old soul is so difficult? It's because we want the love that is authentic. We want to be in a relationship that encourages and celebrates mutual authenticity. We don't want to hide, pretend, suppress, or change who we are in any way. We don't want to find a person that doesn't mind putting up with us, but rather encourages us to put forth our truest, most authentic selves to be completely embraced. Old souls want a love that teaches. Instead of criticizing or rejecting, we crave for someone who will point out things where it's going wrong in ways that we can grow. Deep down, we realize that we will always have more to learn. Socrates once said, "True wisdom is knowing that you know nothing." It can be argued that all love affairs teach us, but they usually teach us unconsciously as a byproduct of suffering. Conscious teaching, on the other hand, is rare and precious and hard to find. Old souls are healers, but we don't want to fix anybody. Due to our nature, we tend to attract people who are looking for help. But while our natural response is to offer help, we realize that entering a relationship in order to fix the other person is unwise. We don't want to be the 24/7 doctors or counselors of our partners. We want to find someone who is in a similar place to us. Old souls have complex personalities, almost mysterious. We think a lot, see deeply into the nature of reality, and have intense personalities. It's hard to find a person who can understand or match our complex identities. Having depth and seeking truth in a society that values materialistic status, objects, and superficial appearance that can intimidate most people from getting to know us. We want a love that is beyond liking. We want fierce, uncompromising, genuine, deep love. In today's world, people throw that around, that word around, love, as if it was synonymous with like, such as I love this ice cream or this pair of shoes. Like has no commitment. One day you like one flavor, the next day you like another. Love is different. While liking is superficial, love is penetrating. While liking something is admiring its exterior form and letting everyone know that what it says about you, love is seeking or seeing past the exterior form and adoring the soul. Old souls want a love that is vulnerable. Being compatible at a personality level is just simply not enough. True love is not liking someone or sharing the same interests, but instead is a willing to open up one's heart and soul even if it hurts. It is through the willingness to be vulnerable that wounds open, given air, and heal. It is through vulnerability that we experience courage and the ability to love unconditionally. But with that comes commitment and effort. A love constantly needs to be nurtured, and like the embers of a burning fire. Words are empty when they aren't followed through by action. As old souls, we know that real love can only be shown through shared experiences, effort, and dedication. We want love to be rooted in wholeness. The moment your happiness depends on another person, you lose your freedom and you love out of choice. Old souls want a partner who is happy and whole by themselves so that they can share that wholeness with them. When people enter in a relationship out of a sense of neediness because they feel incomplete or fear of being lonely, the relationship is doomed. As old souls, they realize that healthy relationships are rooted in inner happiness. Old souls do not settle for anything less than a soulmate love. Old souls find it difficult for comfort, lust, superficial attraction, security, or keeping each other company. They need someone who will share the values to be a true spiritual companion, and they thirst for a soulmate or a twin flame love. They don't enjoy the dating game, the drama, the addiction, the stimulation, the rules of what should and shouldn't happen. It's this egocentric approach towards love that old souls find so unappealing. This adds to the ever-increasing difficulty to find love. And yeah, old souls come with wounds. Many old souls become the way they are through difficult and traumatic life circumstances which force the growth of inner maturity. When it comes to love, it's vital that we find someone who is mature enough to deal with the baggage that we often carry. But this can be very, very hard to find in others. Old souls want more than just sex. Lust, seduction, and sex are alluring, of course, because we're all human, but ultimately momentarily and shallow if obsessed over. While we love sex, we want more than just one-night stands. We want to share our bodies with those that fall in love with our souls rather than just our physical forms. Old souls are free spirits. The reason why falling in love is so beautiful is because it expands us. It unites us with our inner freedom. The moment control is asserted over such transcendent experience, we put love in a cage. And every time we look at that cage, we feel guilty in remembering how free that bird once was. But the old soul is often a loner. In their social lives, old souls are often loners, and they go their own way, caring little for societal norms. They're a rare breed, comprising about 11% of the population. On the fringes of society, they obey the rules of their culture only as required, to get by without causing trouble. They have very little attachment to encounters of a casual nature, such as co-workers and neighbors. They generally shun heavy entanglements with other people. When they do not get involved, it is because there is a strong spiritual, when they do get involved, I should say, it is because there is a strong spiritual bond. And by this is meant that either there is a karmic attachment, so a past life association, or what is called an agreement, a contract made between lifetimes to conduct a relationship. Old souls seek to be united with other fragments of their entity. When old souls do seek companionship, they often do so in the metaphysical realms. People of metaphysical types. Here, they will be most likely to meet those whom they have a spiritual connection with. They seek out the few others who are like themselves and form networks of people with similar interests. This is not usually for the purpose of business advancements like young souls, or for the psychological comfort like maturer souls, but just to share being with other old souls. When old souls party, they usually just sit around and talk. In dating situations, they do not need to go anywhere like to a movie or do anything like playing games as a mean of developing social intimacy. If the basis for psychological intimacy is not quickly apparent to the old soul, they will not put themselves through much trouble to develop it. It is difficult for old souls to weld unions with people that they have not been together with in numerous past lifetimes. But older souls are individualistic. They believe that people should basically do whatever they want to do as long as it doesn't hurt anybody else. They rarely campaign for anything. They don't want to change the world. They just let it be. You might say that they have the ultimate leave it alone attitude. Let nature take its course. Don't interfere in the system. They rarely organize into social clubs which have a hierarchical structure of leaders and followers, or join organizations which promote some cause. Rather, they form loose networks of friends and associates having common interests. Old souls are operating in a dimension of personality different from the previous ages, i.e., again, the infant, baby, young, and mature soul ages. And this puts them into a class by themselves, since the transcendental and infinite souls are only rarely manifest on the physical plane. Like a person with an acceptance goal, the older soul is very tolerant to the differences in others and seeks to unify them. Like a person in power mode, they are confident and assured of their abilities. Like a person with selfishness, in the selfishness feature, they are hedonistic in their desire to do what they want. Like sages, they express wisdom to others. Like idealists, they perceive the unity of and beauty in the world. Like people in the intellectual center, they respond to situations by including them in their philosophical scheme. The bonus about being an old soul, if that's part of your process right now, is that you have few psychological problems. They understand because they've worked through these previous lifetimes. Their subconscious access to the depth of experience means that there's very little that they do not understand about what's going on, both in the world and within themselves. Older souls are easy to be around. They're typically easy for other people to get along too. They're usually agreeable associates because they know how to be gracious. The worst that can be said about an old soul is that they are often detached and aloof, perhaps even uninvolved. Younger souls, however, don't understand this. Although they might admire the fact that an older soul can remain so cool in situations that younger souls find upsetting, there is not much of an old soul that can offend a younger soul, though there is much that can be misunderstood by them. They don't make much of an investment about what's going on around them, and they do not have strong expectations for any particular outcome. Whatever will be, so why fight reality? Old souls inherently perceive the broader perspective. They see that the world rolls on day after day, year after year, millennium after millennium, with the same basic stories being told time after time with minor variations. Old souls know the bigger lesson of the whole maturation cycle, and that is non-judgmental acceptance of anything and everything. What little they cannot abide, old souls simply avoid. Rarely do they seek to change things. It is that old souls tend to follow through the course of the greatest efficiency. They seem to glide effortlessly through life. They go with the flow. They follow the path of least resistance. Younger souls regard this as sheer laziness, lack of drive, willpower. This trait has its advantages and its disadvantages. The good thing is that they are graceful and gracious when it comes to dealing with other people. The disadvantage is that they may lack the initiative to do what could be done. They often come up with great and innovative ideas because of their advanced and efficient perceptions, but they lack the energy to bring them to completion. It is not intended of what I just said to be used by old souls as excuses for laziness and indifference. Once an old soul realizes the cause of his or her condition, then they can make steps to mitigate it or direct it wisely. Older souls are inherently ethical. Because of their advanced perceptions, old souls are inherently ethical in behavior, feeling, and thought. They do not have to be taught right or wrong by their parents or society. There is some socializing to be done when they are children, of course, but programming for decency, honesty, and integrity is inborn. They are conscientious and responsible. They are not jealous, envious, possessive, or pushy. Any one of a number of things which involve attachment to other people. When old souls are dealing with these ethical issues, it is with their subtle aspects. They are gentle towards the faults of others. Harsh perceptions often present in younger souls are absent here. They rarely perceive actions as being truly evil. Rather, they regard things that cause suffering as foolish and primitive. And they seek to cure the cause of the problem by imparting mature knowledge and understanding. Old souls try to maintain a neutrality in time of war. It is a part of their non-attachment who value their independence and neutrality in political issues. If old souls care for anything for politics, it is that they are pacifists. Most often they are simply apolitical and they don't get involved with it at all. They're not even mainstream either. They are aware of their maturity, even if it's subliminally, and regard younger souls as foolish. It's not truly wise, but, there's always so much to learn, even from one's juniors. There is nothing new under the sun is a good motto for the old soul. Being an old soul is often considered hallowed ground for spiritually minded, since this is the incarnational stage of all the accumulated wisdom collected over an arduous series of past life experiences. Thus, if someone is thought to be an old soul, it is immediately assumed that this person is brimming with spiritual knowledge and wisdom. But in the eyes of Teo, or God, however, old souls are not any better than these other soul ages. Each soul age looks at life through a perspective that is appropriate for the life lessons needed to be learned at each stage of development. Not to go political here, I'll give you just to use an example. Presidential candidate Bernie Sanders, on an early level old soul, is a shining example of the vision of an old soul, that an old soul can bring to society. But there is often a lack of neutrality about the old soul in some spiritual communities, with an unrealistic trend that defies this soul age, placing it in a hierarchy above the rest. That's counterproductive and not a true reflection of reality. All souls have equal value, regardless of the soul age. It's a stereotype. The object of an old soul is making the difference to a young soul world. Teaching. Most old souls quickly realize upon reaching adulthood, if they are to survive in what seems like a highly competitive world, they will lower their expectations and recalibrate their value system. But they also think outside of the box. Overall, old souls make a difference when they model an example of how to be. And it can be very, very off-putting to old souls who prefer to be loners rather than joiners. So I've explained everything about an old soul. And since we're on this show, you're probably wondering, we talked about old souls, but what is mine? Again, I've been tested. I'm not actually an old soul. However, I will say, it all depends on your spiritual development. Simply put, I'm a mature soul with many strong old soul traits. Transitional. It's easy to confuse the types, and it's the very reason why I'm doing this show, and I'll show you why, and I'll show you the distinct difference by telling you what a mature soul is, so that you can understand it a little bit more. So after the years of youth and early adulthood comes the time of middle age, much of what can be said about mature souls. They are at the peak of their lives, beyond the folly of youth, yet before the decay of old age. Like the people in their fifth and sixth decades of life, much of their experience is behind them. That is, that they have the subconscious access to the depths of experience not present in younger souls. Consequently, their perceptions are fairly advanced. Rather, they look forward and outward like younger souls. They look backward and inward, and they constantly evaluate whether their life goals are being achieved and what they would do differently if they could start again. They have a strong tendency to be introspective. This incessant self-evaluation can lead to psychological difficulties. Mature souls are in midlife crisis, so to speak. It's not saying that they are. It's each to their own. Mature souls make a lot of adjustments along the way. They're adaptive. And they seek to comprehend everything. There is very little that escapes their view or scrutiny. The place for mature souls is to seek this in such places like libraries, college. Mature souls are great believers in education. They go to school for a different reason than all the other souls. Whereas other souls get educated to further their careers, most mature souls seek knowledge for its own sake. They want to understand. It may not always be in a formal or institutional setting, but since this can be seen too structured and limiting, too conformed, they often pursue knowledge on their own, in their own way, reading widely or taking night school or whatever subject is of interest to them. They do this rather than seeking a formal degree. The courses that mature souls are less likely to involve occupation and more likely to be more personal improvement than what you will see in younger souls taking. Mature souls care more about what they are learning about than the grades that they make to learn it. Mature souls are always in searching and seeking mode all their lives. There's an itch to find themselves, express themselves. Personal fulfillment is their constant quest. This they never quite achieve to their own satisfaction. The problem is that mature souls are very, very complex. Very. There is so much going on in their psyches which other people cannot fathom. They themselves do not understand. And for those who do know me and know that I have researched my personality background from an MBTI standpoint, you will know that I'm an INFJ. Coherently, I find it very, very funny that a lot of my personality traits actually all sum it up. That's just a reflective view. They are the most likely of ages to need and seek psychological counseling for emotional difficulties. The majority of people who go to psychologists for counseling are mature souls. And the majority of psychologists are themselves mature souls. And they probably have a lot of psychological churning that they have themselves are working through. It's funny how a therapist has to work through their own traumas in order to heal themselves, in order to heal another. Many psychological challenges that come to surface with a mature soul age which have to be dealt with on a conscious level. If it cannot be dealt with, the person can turn to alcoholism as an escape. Mature souls will not often let themselves do actual physical harm to other people. So they might turn their frustrations concerning others upon themselves, which in turn leads to depression and so on and so forth. They want to understand the significance of everything and the motivations for why people do things. They're very, very observant. More than a person of any other age, the mature soul cares about the problems of the planet, wants to correct them, cares about other people and wants to help them, cares about his or her own well-being and wants to improve it. Mature souls are open to all experience and are prone to try pragmatic solutions to their difficulties rather than using canned establishment imperatives, i.e., solutions that a young soul would go try. Since mature souls are relatively evolved in their consciousness, their behavior is very, very ethical. They're working on the finer points of human relationships and they value the feelings and opinions of other people, and it hurts them when others do not think of them well. While it's true that they could be somewhat nonconformist and even a little bit rebellious in nature, nevertheless, mature souls are not completely detached from a sense of social obligation. In the later levels of mature age, the person is always seeks answers. A mature person a soul, I should say, almost seeks to the answers to the bigger questions of life in the way that few people or more primitive cycles do. This often means involvement in metaphysical endeavor, practice, and knowledge. By metaphysical is meant everything from psychology to religion to the psychic. And that might even include science. Like scholars, they value knowledge and information very, very highly. Like pragmatists, they regard the world as a smoothly functioning machine. Like people in instinctive center, they live by their impulses and whims. Mature souls are psychologically attuned to other people, though they are empathetically experience other people as they experience themselves. And when they are not in harmony, they get upset. Biggest promotion of harmony is by mature souls. And they need a sanctuary wherein to shield themselves in time of psychological stress. They're very, very relationship orientated. They seek the camaraderie like-minded companions. And they value their relationships as the most important things in their lives. A good place for mature souls to meet others for companionship or mating is in school, higher learning, or sapiosexual type settings. Bar scenes don't appeal. They have a highly developed sense of humor and they laugh very, very easily. Mature souls are often very much involved in the affairs of the world and they have the greater need for quite a refuge to which they can retreat. Like they like to have a cabin in the woods or at a lake where they can take a vacation from the rat race. They don't seek material things or have a second home for a status like a young soul, but for an escape, a sanctuary. Mature souls seek less tangible things than material possessions. Mature souls are reluctant to fight in wars because they regard all of humankind as their brethren. And for this reason, they tend to be pacifistic and not in a militant way like a young soul might be. Even though they love freedom, they usually prefer to submit to domination rather than fight for that freedom. Mature souls are the avant-garde of society. It is they who make the generally novel contributions to the advancement of culture. They are the inspired visionaries, whatever field of endeavor you might name, whether scientific, religious, political, technological, artistic, philosophical, humanitarian, or economic. It is the mature soul who are on the forefront and at the leading edge on the frontiers. Mature souls often campaign for reforms in society. They form the core of environmentalist movement, the anti-nuclear energy movement, the ban the bomb movement, or any such improvement to the world endeavor. They are beyond in the perception of value of spiritual aspects of life, but they are nevertheless entangled with the affairs of the world to such an extent that they think that the planet is worth the trouble of making it a better place. In political philosophy, the mature soul is liberal. Now, again, this is not a personal political view of mine. Is left wing. Perhaps even to the point of being socialistic. The idealistic hippie era of the 1960s was mature soul phenomenon. So yeah, I always long called myself a hippie, so you know. Peace, love, and all that goes with it. But here's some practical help for people out there. Locate yourself well. And I'm talking about if you've already accomplished your inner mastery and moving on for new evolutions in soul maturity. Locate yourself well. Know exactly where you're standing now, how you got there, who you are, and why you're doing it. This doesn't mean you are willing to consider reasonable arguments and change your direction. Most likely there are a number of things that you want to change in your life, but you know them and you have a clear action plan. You have a life mission. There's something apart from morning commute to work that makes you wake up in the morning. You call it your passion, your hobby, your purpose, your inner motives. But you feel it guiding you throughout all your difficulties, hardships, and simply slow periods of life. If you are having trouble staying focused on your goals, break it into small consecutive portions and devote 1 hour a day, every day, to accomplish that, or whatever time limit you want to put on it. You can distinguish goals from desires. That say your body knows better what it wants and needs. However, the body is a highly sensitive system and its radars are often obstructed by our brain and emotions. Try to stay away from momentary weaknesses and cultivate healthy habits. It takes 30 days to work out a habit, and having a handful of healthy and beneficial habits is a machine that works for your well-being and happiness. You are in charge of your actions. Take full responsibility for your own actions and know what triggers or what causes them. Analyze previous experiences and carry on the best solutions for lessons learned. As a result, you can be in full control of your life. It starts from the little things, not like buying half of the department store because it's because of a painful breakup, and goes on to more complicated situations, like when you don't ignore a conflict but deliberately work it out. Be open to new things. Find a balance between knowing exactly what you want and being susceptible to new ideas. Pursue knowledge of any kind. Don't be afraid to change your views, your beliefs, or modify an already pre-mapped plan. Such people are keen on testing their own beliefs and convictions of others and convinced that nothing is for sure. Take a risk, step into the unknown. What have you got to lose? I know for a fact that a lot of people live on excuse. You can distinguish real leadership from mere displays of arrogance. Teach yourself that. Knowing when to let yourself be led by somebody who is more competent and experienced is what we call wisdom. However, very often we take external displays of knowledge and confidence for granted, letting the ego and cocky individuals take reins of power into their hands and use this influence to further bolster their self-esteem. Find your own idols, and often more than one great leader to learn from. This ability to learn from the best and not focus on one and only right person or ideology is often what makes great leaders themselves. You remember that you are kind, and you see the potential in everyone around you. You respect everyone's right to your own opinion, or to their own opinion, sorry. What am I saying? And treat everyone with dignity. You always try to bring out the best in the other person and focus on the positive things in life and the people around you. Set high standards for yourself. There's nothing wrong with high standards. Raise the bar. You can have its downside. I mean, the downside of being sensitive and deep being, you feel that you already know doesn't account for even 1/10 of what you could know. So strive for more. There's nothing wrong with perfectionism. It's a frequent trait. And knowing when to compliment yourself and move on to the next task is an important skill you have to learn and practice regularly. You talk for the sake of the healthy discussion, not to prove yourself right. Loving to get and share knowledge to people who are other soul levels. Greatly appreciate fruitful discussions, but don't impose on their opinions or their opinions on others. Master the art of listening and hearing others to perfection. And be the inspiring person so that you can inspire people around you to positive action. You can't help it, but you wish all the best to people around you. And they may not always try not to disappoint you. You motivate them to be better and go on with their great endeavors. Just be grateful. Wish them success. Jealousy and envy is just a bit of poison that you swallow. Don't put yourself in another person's shoes and try and live their life. These are only just some of the general signs that can mean only one thing. If you see yourself having accomplished in some of them or working on it, you are one of the great individuals of this world, and you can influence it for the better. Now, I could talk about empathy, but I think I may just leave that for another show. There's a very, very big connection between empaths and souls and old souls. But I might just leave that for another day. And I could get into the cosmology of old souls and soul levels and soul ages and the Akashic records and everything that I have had spoken about over the last 4 weeks is all interconnected. From my standpoint, applying the teachings to everyday life occurs when people stop thinking about their roles in conceptual terms and actively use the teachings as a tool for spiritual development, which includes having a more positive interaction with others. And of course, the idea is to apply what is being taught and integrate them is bound to come up in any discussion without belaboring the somatics involved. Integration means to assimilate the concepts to the point that reference is not required to discuss them in conversation. If you can thoroughly understand the meaning and implication of theories and conceptualize extends beyond mere definitions. With application, the rubber hits the road, so to speak. And you can actively test the ideas in the real world and get a necessarily reality checks of those concepts. No longer distracted by the theoretical, the ultimate goal of what is being taught is then to be spiritually awakened. And it's the entire point of this show. So how do we do it? Live the role. Understand how soul personalities work. Know your tendencies, your shadow work. Work on it. Knowing the tendencies gives you a leg up when it comes to dealing with shadowy manifestations of your darker side. Accept your complexity. Recognize false personality and how to neutralize negativity. Learning to recognize manifestations of false personality is the most essential of all mastery teachings. Replace it with the weapon of choice, observation. The act of observance weakens the hold of false personality and it prevents it from gaining more traction. Finding an acceptable balance. Duality. Find your center-related distractions. Primary center. Primary centers are intellectual, emotional, moving, and physical. Intellectually, think. Mathematical equations, reading books about philosophy, reciting the alphabet backwards, reading grocery lists. Emotional, watching sad or romantic movies, listening to music, stirs the soul, reliving joyful memories. Moving, exercise, going to the grocery, mailing letters, being aware of the body and its individual movements. Physical, feeling hungry, meditating on the internal mechanisms and sensations of your body, using moving centered activities to focus inward, i.e., have sex. Practice and learn tolerance and compassion. Model agape. To model agape or unconditional love is to make declaration to the world that you are a vessel of spirit and for higher good. With agape comes a mastery of the self and the gift that acknowledges the light of your being in others. As you serve as a model for loving acceptance, you draw more lost souls into your sphere of influence, souls that lack what you have to give, souls that benefit from the demonstrations of your gifts. At this stage of development, you have become a teacher, a leader, a guide, and a fountain of inspiration. Ultimately, to model agape is to become, perhaps only for a brief moment, the living embodiment of the Tower, or God. In fact, each obstacle and challenge you face in life should be as fodder to raise consciousness and grow spiritually. Life offers such a rich source of experiences, both good and bad, and the opportunities to practice being essence and more compassion into situations are limitless. And in closing, we just want to remind folks that anything I teach on this show, or any shows previously from here on out, should not be seen as scripture or as gospel truth, to be followed to the letter. While I feel you worthy of study, you're in a constant state of flux, with some insights tried and tested and others that still surprise me and you. That is bolstered by both its consistency and its tenacity for change. And with that said, I don't know what the next topic is going to be for next week, but I will be live next Tuesday at 7 p.m. We had to start a little earlier this week. So we have gone well over almost 2.5 hours. You can see this archive on YouTube. It'll be made available very, very soon once it finishes processing over there. And on Facebook. And you can go to my website. If you want to ask me any questions, you can email me at somafusionlifecoach@gmail.com. If you request any of my services, please inquire through there. My website is www.soma-fusion.com. I look forward to seeing you next week. Stay happy, stay healthy, live, love, dream, and make an impact. Good night, my beautiful friends.